I'm just going to start doing these videos when I think about them now. It's a lot easier. So, this one is, I can't remember when, maybe 9 years ago or something. I think it's when I first moved to London. I got banned on Facebook. It was only like for 24 hours or a couple of days or something like that. And it made me think at the time I wasn't, I had a Twitter account since 2009. What was it, 2000? Yeah, I think 2009. I had Facebook since 2007. And it made me think that they owned my relationships, and if we were to be in a situation where we would be remote, I remember a little bit after this, I was looking at work, and not just in Europe, but in the Middle East. I used to do contract and IT, as a project manager, and I remember thinking, shit, what if I was cut off in like somewhere like, let's say I was working in Alaska. One of the things I was looking for was contracts in Alaska at the time as well, and Middle East, that kind of thing, even Antarctica to prove it was there. And yeah, the thought occurred to me that what would happen if we get to the stage and we allow these companies to effectively own our relationships. People get, because the thing then was, it was almost like people were moving away from email. Like you of course, you required an email address, and most people, even when they got locked out of their account, someone hacked into their account, they would find it impossible to get it back. So you had people with 4 or 5 accounts because they could never get back into the one they had. What they would do is they would create an email just for the purpose of getting on Facebook. And I thought to myself, shit, that's actually quite dangerous because, and this is obviously why today you've got a lot of YouTubers that are trying to get direct contact because they've work the same thing out. Basically, they own your relationships. So if you had one corporation, especially if you look at how Facebook purchased other companies, they wanted to be the one overarching control mechanism for the connectivity of people. Now, of course, there's other factors in it as well, the big data analytics side of things, the AI tuning that comes from the big data gleaned from these platforms. But one side of it is simply the restriction of connectivity of people. And funny enough, right now, there is no more of a litmus test case for this than you can see with Donald Trump's situation with Parler. Now, I was saying a long time ago, it makes no sense why the kind of stick that he gets online, it makes no sense why he wouldn't be dragging people off Twitter. He complains about Twitter all the time, and yet has the power to direct 74 million people, or 74 million voters, which is probably about 10 million voters at least more than what Biden got. And Biden, let's face it, those voters were not people who wanted to vote Biden, they were people who didn't want Trump. And it's the same as a lot of people who voted Trump the first time around were just people who didn't want Hillary Clinton, right? So you've also always got to look at popularity in that respect. I suppose you could say the same this time with Trump, actually. You could say that a lot of people were just people who, they wanted a decent candidate and they didn't find Biden a decent candidate to go against Trump. Anyway, the point being that, let's say you have at least 60 million people who would follow his advice. That is a good critical mass to take an app to the next level, right? And the same is true for LBRY, Odyssey, all these other decentralized DTube and stuff like that. These people could have taken it. When people who are being censored in the world, for example, maybe even the guy in Venezuela, what's his name again? The bus driver, Maduro, Duterte over in Philippines. All these people who get banned by Twitter, and by the way, they don't get banned by Twitter by doing war crimes. They don't get banned for killing people. They get banned for saying bad things about gay people. They get banned by saying things that are unsavory, in alignment with the woke agenda. And a very interesting thing to look at there. Like literally, you can be someone who ordered the murder of millions of people, in the case of Hillary Clinton, and you can, or George Bush or Barack Obama, and you're a good person. You're a good person. but you're someone who says there are two genders, you're deplatformed, you know. So in the case of Donald Trump, one is either the guy's got absolutely no strategic bone in his body, or he has no strategic advisors who actually care about him doing anything good, or he's just a complete actor. Because why the hell would you not have all that time whinging and moaning about Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey, all that time, and you didn't think to, hang on, let me just get my followers to follow me in parallel on a different platform or four. Because that's what you would have done. You would have said, oh, let's look, you've got a whole team of people working for you. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not the one doing all those tweets. I'm pretty sure he's got a team who's logged into his same account tweeting on behalf of him. So why wouldn't you just start a whole bunch of social media accounts? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, let's get past that part and let's pretend that, you know, again, I was saying the other day that if you wanted to start a civil war in America tomorrow, what you would do is jail Trump. And what are they talking about? Because you've got all these criminals, all these past presidential criminals, right? Oh, sorry. Get these past presidential criminals, and none of them have been jailed ever. It would be unprecedented if you did. Unprecedented if you did. But, you know, Trump is will be the first one who's not a politician. And maybe that's what they do. They give him the public beating just to that's what happens when you come up here and try not be an insider first. How dare you come into our system? Similar to the legal system, if you've ever been to court and decided not to use a lawyer, it means you end up getting convicted. It's not because that you don't know the law. It's not because you're in the wrong. It's not because you put a foot wrong when you were given your testimony. It's because you didn't choose one of their insiders. Because what the judge thinks is if everyone did that, we would be out of a job. And the whole legal system is about extraction of wealth, and it's about facilitation of evil, and it's also about ensnaring the good. That's the three pillars of the injustice systems of the world, right? So in the case of this situation with Trump, a while ago I was also saying that when you fall out of favor with one platform, they will block you on all of them. That now, it seems a little bit, in some of the cases we've seen over the last few years, we have literally seen Twitter and Facebook banning within a few days. That means they're linked. That means they're just the same organization. So we know that these organizations exist for the purpose of allowing structures that are not constrained by the Constitution in the USA. Because by being private organizations, they don't have to comply. Well, that's a debatable thing, that. So, because, you know, if you look at the situation with freedom of speech, freedom of press, the press are, they're also private corporations as well. You could say, well, why do these private corporations need freedom of expression or whatever it is? Anyway, I think there's a lot of grey areas in there, but the point I'm trying to get to is within 1 or 2 days, both Apple and Google block the Parler app just because Trump's saying, get me on Parler. Really think about that. They don't want to, because Parler won't play ball. Parler won't block him. Therefore, you're going to block a whole platform. Now, simple fact is, when it cut you, look, there's ways around this. So with the other company I was working with a while ago, Private, Pryvate, I was saying that what we should have in certain countries, let's say if you're in North Korea and they block the download on Apple, well, I think Apple is, you don't get it there anyway, but let's say you block it on Google. Google operates in every fascist and communist country in the world without question, no problem with it. They'll happily go along with whatever it is there. Child slavery, Google's there, they're fine, they're okay with that. Picking up refugees from Honduras to take them past a safe country, Mexico, so they can get to the border in America, so they can take part or add on to some political furore. Facebook and Instagram don't mind supplying the buses, so that these children can be apparently caged at the border inside cages that Biden and Obama made. It's funny how the narratives work here. So within a couple of days, you've got these two platforms that have banned a whole app. Now, this is where we're at, because getting back to the start of the conversation, or talk, whatever, conversation, whatever. The channels of communication they're trying to own, not just the channels like the air station channels, but the literal connectivity between us. And if you couple that, the other example I gave before is the scenario where I was working in different places and I thought, shit, they could really own my relationship here if I wasn't using email. But people whose phone numbers and email addresses I don't have, and let's face it, it's common not to have those nowadays for your friends. You're relying on these fucking platforms, and you get kicked off the platform. These motherfuckers own your relationship, and yet the connectivity between you. We'll couple that with lockdown. They really own your relationship, so you got to be very, very careful. So I would say that anyone that really matters to you in this world, you should have long ago made sure that you have their phone number, their email address, their physical postal or location, and anything else that you can think of. And not just that, if you're going to be on social media, remember to diversify on these platforms. Don't just sit on Facebook's your only one. Best to not use them, therefore you don't get the attraction of being banned, or use them as little as possible. So maybe you have a Facebook account, you just don't upload much to it, and it just is for simple communication back and forth. You have other ones, but as soon as times get bad and they want to cut people off different platforms, control them in different ways, at least you have multiple streams of connectivity to the people that matter in your life. I mean, I've even got these shortwave radio, no, not shortwave, what called scanners. But that's more for snowboarding, but it doubles as a good emergency device. Yeah, so just talk about that one really. I wonder if they'll get back on the Play Store. See, the downside of this as well, as I said, what we were doing in private, I was saying that to get around these restrictions in some countries, we should just put the API file for APK, I think it is, APK file for Android and API file for iPhone. And the thing is, if you try to do that, it's another thing. You find that Google and especially Apple will penalize you heavily. They will try to throw you off if they find that you're supplying your app outside the App Store. This is to give them, again, total channelized control of everything that's out there. So the only time that you could really safely go on start supplying your installation file, which, by the way, depending on your phone setup, you can get so many little bugs with Android phones and Apple phones, but especially with the Android ones. You'll have a situation where you download an APK file, right? And then you try and install it. And what it'll do is it'll open the wrong thing to install it. So you'll actually open one of the apps you already have, like, I don't know, Google Maps. And every time you go in this APK file, it'll open Google Maps, right? Because it's so easy for these things to get corrupted or changed just by fumbling around your phone, where it will actually open instead of opening the installer APK, it will open something else to relate to unpackaging or installing that app. So I could actually imagine right now that of all the people who are going direct to the internet, who actually have the brains to bother Googling or, DuckDuckGoing or ECHOCHAMBER or Binging, let's hope they don't use Bing, to get an APK or API file, that when they get to these sites that do exist where you can download an API file directly, the installation won't work. So for the few that will have the nous to do that, up to 10% or even probably more wouldn't be able to install it. So they really have cut you off. Now, when that's look, we see not only are the mainstream liars, not only are they're pushed up the ladder by way of subscriptions. Some of these people out there, they've got nothing to say, and yet they've got millions and millions of subscribers. And the mainstream media, of course, no one wants to watch it, but it's still pushed in front of your face anyway. You sure don't want to watch this? Oh, here, this. Look, watch this, this. And I don't want to watch it. It's still shit. Fuck off. And attracts all the eyes because it's being forced in front of the faces of the sheep. Well, imagine you were to have the same thing with, let's say, the despot that they say that Trump is. Imagine he were to have that kind of media clout. Imagine someone like Tulsi Gabbard in the Democrat Party had had the support of the media that Kamala Harris, who got totally destroyed in the debates, had. And she was very unpopular. She never was popular at all. She was so unpopular they had to run her as Joe Biden. You know, that's how unpopular. No matter what they did, they could not make that woman popular. People just couldn't stand her. So what did they do? They defrauded, because Biden was like, well, Biden's got about 1/3 of supporters Sanders. That's enough for us to lie and change the narrative, just like what happened in the independence referendum in Scotland. With only 35, maybe at a stretch 40% of people voting against independence. Most of them is because the fear of being thrown out of the EU, by the way. That's what happened. The UK spread that lie. Just with that amount, it's enough to make a cover story that there's actually 55%, not 35%, and that they're a silent majority. And you'll see that used all over the world, by the way, even in different languages. Silent majority. So the silent majority is always a bunch of miserable fucks, apparently, because they never want to rejoice about their win. You know, even before they win, after they win, you never see them. You never see them in the street. They're never vocal. Online, they never have anything to say. In other words, the accounts that pretend to be them are not linked to a human being. They're a bot. Try have a conversation with one, you'll see. And in these scenarios that happen all around the world. So, yeah, same thing. As in America, you saw a situation where Bernie got extremely popular. They thrust Hillary Clinton far less popular. People on the left and right say that I detest that woman. It's such a common thing to say they detest. And the people who support her have absolutely no personality. They don't even have enough personality to hold a human-like conversation. Again, it's a bot. It's not a person. And this is what's happening. I think it's really an attack of the AI, and the remaining human beings are being flushed out, and all you have is the automatons being program fed by the AI system, the big Whopper supercomputer, as Matt from Quantum Conscience calls it. So really, it's a case of people can go straight to these new platforms, new video platforms, learn from there. If they want to be connected socially to these people, they'll have to learn. Here's a how-to video on the Odyssey platform on how to get around stuff. You know, people are going to have to start getting wiser. I think that there's probably going to be a critical mass of that happening at one stage. As I say, Trump could have made it happen a lot sooner. He fucked up. He dropped the ball. Maybe he did it on purpose. I still don't trust any leader. I talk about, what's her name? Tulsi Gabbard quite a lot because she wants to end the wars. But we already saw Bernie Sanders flipping on a dime, AOC flipping on a dime, saying things that are rational and logical and then turning out to be communists, basically. I mean, that's what I can see. So instead of the social democrats that they pretended to be. Yeah, that's about it, really. Have a good one.